Okay, in this video we're going to go through 8th grade math minute number 4. So let's go ahead and get started here. Okay, so number 1, we have 3 and 57 hundredths times 10 to the third power. Okay, so I'm going to 3 and 57 hundredths. And that exponent of 3, we're multiplying, so we know we're multiplying by a positive number, so our decimal is going to be moving to the right. Okay, and it has an exponent of 3. Remember, if you remember back to our last math minute, that tells us that we're going to move that decimal 3 places to the right. Exponent of 3. So 1, 2, 3. Decimal's going right here. That spot that we jumped, you got to put a 0 in there. And when we rewrite this number, we would end up with 3,570. Okay. Number 2, we have 2 squared times 2 cubed. So I'm going to write this out. So I'll start with my 2 squared. It means 2 times 2. And we're multiplying that by 2 to the third power. So 2 to the third power, it's 2 times 2 times 2. So let's do that. 2 times 2 times 2. Before I even go ahead and solve this, I want to take a look at this. I notice that I'm multiplying 2 by itself 5 times. What we could have done, okay, since we have the same coefficient here, we have 2 squared and 2 cubed. In both cases, we have a coefficient of 2. What I could have done is I could have taken a look at our exponents, the 2 and the 3, and I could have just added those together. 2 plus 3 is 5. And I could have just rewritten, instead of writing 2 squared times 2 cubed, I could have just written 2 with an exponent of 5, 2 to the 5th power. Okay? Really, it's the same thing. All right? And when I go ahead and multiply all these, 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, times 2 is 16, times 2 is 32. Final answer would be 32. Okay, number 3. Which of these represents a whole number? Okay, so number 4 is a whole number. It's not a fraction. It's not a decimal. It's a whole number. 3.2 or 3 2/10. That is a decimal. That's not going to work. Okay, not a whole number. C, we have 4/7. Okay, if I kind of break this fraction down and write it as, and try and divide it and solve it, read it as 4 divided by 7, I'd end up with a really wacky decimal. All right. And decimals are not whole numbers, so that's not going to work. And then D, we have 8/4. And I could read that as a division problem, 8 divided by 4. Well, you guys know 8 divided by 4 is 2. This would work. Okay, on to number 4. It says, which of these represents an integer? Okay, so an integer, it's just a whole number. Okay, it can be negative, it can be positive, but it's not a fraction, it's not a decimal. All right, so -3 would work. Okay, it's a negative whole number. That would work. 4 would work. Okay, it's a positive whole number. C, 2.5. That's a mixed number. That's a fraction. That's not going to do it. It's not an integer. 6 and 2/10. It's a decimal, not a whole number. Not going to work. Okay, on to number 5. Okay, it's asking us which of these options has a number written in scientific notation. And when we're writing numbers in scientific notation, really we're multiplying a number by 10 with some sort of exponent at the top. In each of these, you'll notice that we have times 10 with exponent of 1, times 10 with exponent of 4, times 10 with exponent of 2, times 10 with an exponent of 3. We're always multiplying by 10 with an exponent of something. Okay? What we want to do, really focus on when we're doing this, though, what's going to separate these 4 options is our starting number. So 398, 3 and 98 hundredths, 39 and 8/10. Okay? 398 thousandths. We want to make sure, this is important, we have to make sure that we only have a number in the ones place. Okay? I'm looking at this first option. I have an 8 in the ones place, but then I have a 9 in the tens place, a 3 in the hundreds place. I'm looking at B. I have a 9 in the ones place, but then I have a 3 in the tens place. Over here, I don't even have a number in the ones place. It's blank, it's empty. Okay? So our only option that we have left is C, where it says we have a 3 in the ones place, and then 98 following that decimal. Okay? So C is going to be our option that works. We have to make sure that we only have a number in the ones place when we're writing this as scientific notation. All right? Okay, Number 6, we have 8 plus 4 times 3 divided by 5. So let's take care of that multiplication. So 4 times 3 is 12. 8 plus 12 is 20. So the top part of this fraction, our numerator, is 20. And we're just left with 20 fifths, or 20 divided by 5. And that's going to be 4. Number 7, we have 2 with a negative exponent of 2. All right, so you're trying to word that in your head. We know exponents tell us how many times we multiply a number by itself. If we're looking at this, that means 2 times itself, negative 2 times. Can you multiply a number by itself a negative amount of times? It just kind of makes your mind woggle. We want to get rid of that negative because that's nonsense. All right. So what we would do to get rid of that negative is you would just give this number a numerator of 1. And we could just rewrite it as 1, and then a denominator of 2, an exponent of 2. That takes care of that negative, okay? So anytime you have a negative exponent, just give it a numerator of 1. Turn it into a fraction, give it a numerator of 1, and then we could go from here, okay? So let's rewrite this. 1, and then 2 with an exponent of 2. That's 2 times 2, or 4. So our answer there would be 1/4. Okay? All right, number 8. We have 3 cubed over 3 squared. So I'm going to rewrite that. 3 times 3 times 3 over 3 times 3. What you'll notice here that we can do is we can just cancel the 3's out. So I have 3 there. Those cancel out. I have a set of 3 here. These cancel out. So really all we're left with is 3, and there's going to be an imaginary 1 down here. It's fine. So our answer here would be 3. Okay? And again, similar to how above when we were multiplying with exponents, how we would add those exponents together, when we're dividing using exponents, you would just subtract the exponents from each other. So up here we have an exponent of 3, down here we have an exponent of 2. You could just do 3 minus 2, and that would give you 1. Okay, so we'd be left with 3 with an exponent of 1, or in other words, 3. Okay, and then number 9, I'm going to move this up a bit. Number 9, we have square root of 25. So what we're trying to figure out here is what number times itself is 25. Okay, 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 4 is 16. 5 times 5 is 25. So the square root of 25 is 5. And then last one, number 10, we have 3, and then inside parentheses we have 4 squared plus 1. Let's take a look at the parentheses first. Okay. 4 squared is 16. It's 4 times 4 is 16. Now we're left with 3 parentheses, 16 plus 1. 16 plus, because we still have our parentheses, 16 plus 1, it's going to be 17. Okay, now we're left with 3 parentheses 17, or 3 times 17, and that's going to give us 51. Okay. That is Math Minute 4.